In 1901, divers pulled a corroded lump of bronze from a 2,000-year-old shipwreck. It sat in a museum drawer for 50 years. When the world finally understood what it was, the textbooks had to be rewritten. It was a computer. The story begins in the spring of 1900, in the Aegean Sea. A storm has driven a small boat of Greek sponge divers to shelter behind a tiny island called Antikythera. The water is calm. The men decide to dive. One of them, Elias Stadiatis, descends in a heavy brass helmet, 50 meters down. He surfaces moments later, pale, shaking. He says he has seen a heap of dead bodies on the seafloor. Naked men, women, and horses scattered across the rocks. They were not bodies. They were bronze and marble statues, scattered across the wreck of a Roman cargo ship that had gone down around the 1st century BC. Within months, the Greek government had launched the first major underwater archaeological recovery in history. Royal Navy boats. Hard hat divers. A military escort. Over the next year, they brought up bronze statues, marble torsos, jewelry, glassware, gold coins, and dozens of amphorae. One of the divers died of the bends. 2 others were paralyzed. And among the treasures, almost as an afterthought, came a lump of corroded bronze the size of a show box. It was catalogued, placed on a shelf in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens, and forgotten. For 50 years. The shipwreck had given up an emperor's worth of art. No one yet realized it had also given up something far stranger. Something that, when it was finally understood, would force historians to rewrite the story of human invention. In 1951, an English physicist named Derek de Solla Price came to Athens. He had heard rumors that the bronze lump contained gears. Gears, in something 2,000 years old, should have been impossible. The Greeks were known for philosophy, for sculpture, for geometry. They were not known for precision machines. That, at least, was what the textbooks said. Price examined the fragments under a microscope. He saw teeth. Hand-cut bronze teeth, no thicker than a fingernail. He counted them. 223 on one wheel alone. This was not jewelry. This was not decoration. This was machinery. In 1971, Price brought the fragments to a hospital in Athens and x-rayed them. The images stunned him. Layered inside the green corrosion were dozens of interlocking gears, stacked like the floors of a building. He could see at least 30 of them. He could even read writing. Tiny Greek letters etched onto the surfaces. An instruction manual. Carved into the device itself. Price published his findings in 1959, and again, in greater detail, in 1974. He called it the world's oldest computer. Most of his colleagues did not believe him. A few quietly suggested he had lost his mind. It would take another 30 years, and a new generation of scanners, to prove he had been right all along. Here is what we now know the Antikythera mechanism could do. You turned a small handle on the side. That single motion drove a train of more than 30 bronze gears. On the front face, pointers swept across a zodiac calendar, showing the position of the sun and the moon. A small rotating ball, half black and half silver, showed the current phase of the moon. The faster you turned the crank, the faster time ran. On the back of the device, 2 great spiral dials made predictions. The upper spiral tracked the Metonic cycle, 19 years, after which the phases of the moon repeat on the same calendar dates. The lower spiral tracked the Saros cycle, 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours, after which eclipses repeat. That is worth saying again. 2,000 years ago, on a Greek workbench, someone built a device that could tell you when the next eclipse would happen. Solar or lunar. Day or night. Down to the hour. A smaller dial inside the Metonic spiral counted down to the next Olympic Games. A separate Callipic dial refined the long calendar over a 76-year period. And in 2021, a team led by Tony Freeth at University College London reconstructed the front of the mechanism in full. They showed how concentric pointers, driven by hidden gear trains, modeled the apparent motion of the 5 planets the Greeks knew. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. All of them, moving across the sky in bronze. It was, in the most literal sense, a model of the cosmos you could hold in your hands. And it ran on a single turn of a wheel. So who made it? We do not know the name. We may never know the name. But we can narrow the suspects. Recent analysis of the inscriptions and the eclipse predictions points to a construction date between roughly 150 and 100 BC. The astronomical calculations baked into the gears match the work of one specific school of Greek science. The school of Hipparchus, on the island of Rhodes. Hipparchus was the greatest astronomer of the ancient world. He catalogued the stars. He measured the length of the year to within minutes. He discovered the precession of the equinoxes, a wobble in Earth's rotation that takes 26,000 years to complete. A device that encoded his mathematics, built in his city, in his lifetime, is not a coincidence. There is a second candidate. Syracuse, in Sicily. 2 centuries earlier, Syracuse had been home to Archimedes. The Roman statesman Cicero, writing decades after the mechanism was built, described a bronze sphere that Archimedes had constructed. It showed the motions of the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets. Cicero claimed to have seen it himself, in the home of a Roman general. For centuries, historians dismissed this as legend, or as Roman exaggeration. After Antikythera, no one dismisses it anymore. And then there is the ship itself. The cargo was heading west, toward Italy. It was loaded with Greek statues and luxury goods, the kind of plunder Romans had been shipping home for a century. The dictator Sulla had sacked Athens in 86 BC, stripping the city of its art. Some scholars believe our mechanism was part of that haul. A masterpiece of Greek science, on its way to decorate the villa of a Roman senator who could not read it, could not work it, and probably did not understand what it was. It never arrived. A storm caught the ship near Antikythera, and the cosmos sank to the seafloor. And here is the part that should unsettle you. After the Antikythera mechanism went down with that ship, nothing like it appears in the archaeological record for 1400 years. Rome rose. Rome fell. The library at Alexandria burned. Europe forgot how to read Greek. Centuries of knowledge, astronomical, mathematical, mechanical, were lost, scattered, or buried in monastery vaults. Not until the great cathedral clocks of 14th century Europe do we see comparable gearwork again. A gap longer than the entire history of the Roman Empire. There is a temptation, when you look at the Antikythera mechanism, to call it a miracle. To say it should not have existed. To reach for aliens, or lost civilizations, or some buried supernatural cause. That temptation is wrong, and it is lazy. The Greeks had the geometry. They had the astronomy. They had the metalwork. The mechanism is not an anomaly. It is what their civilization was capable of when its best minds turned in one direction at one moment in history. The wonder is not that they built it. The wonder is that we almost never knew they could. One device survived. 1. Found by accident. Ignored for 50 years. Decoded over a century of careful, painstaking work. How many others were melted down for scrap, lost in fires, or rusted to nothing on a forgotten seafloor? We have no idea. The Antikythera mechanism is not, in the end, a story about ancient Greeks. It is a story about us. It is proof that knowledge can be lost. That entire technologies can vanish, leaving no trace but a single corroded lump of bronze, waiting 2,000 years on the seabed for someone to look at it twice. Today, the original fragments rest in a climate-controlled case in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. Behind the glass, the green bronze still holds its gears. Still keeps its secrets. Researchers believe at least one major fragment is still missing, lost on the seabed, or ground to dust by the centuries. The dives continue. Every summer, a new team goes back to the wreck. They are still finding pieces. If this changed how you see the ancient world, subscribe. We reconstruct a lost civilization every week.